The whole reason for this opening scene, where a great council is called to vote on the next Targaryen king of the Seven Kingdoms, is because of the death of Baelon, Viserys and Daemon's father. 101 AC is a date of both the Great Council and the time of his death, and by this point in the lore, the old king Jaehaerys, this guy, is completely drained. Baelon's father had been ruling for decades and has outlived many of his children, his sister wife, and all his male heirs. Thanks to this world-building supplementary book called Fire and Blood, that's all about the Targaryen family, we finally learned everything that there is to know about these three key generations. As per their gross custom, Jaehaerys marries his younger sister Alyssa. Both the nobles and the common people were still not happy seeing their new rulers ignoring a massive taboo like incest. But both this king and queen had dragons. Lucky for them, only one of their 13 were born with disabilities. Baelon and Alyssa came into this world scotch-free. Baelon was the third-born child. He was named after one of the Targaryen lords who would rule Dragonstone before the conquest, himself a second son. Though smaller than his brother Aemon at birth, the new babe was louder and lustier, and his wet nurses complained that they had never known a child to suck so hard. Only 2 days before his birth, the White Ravens had flown from the Citadel to announce the arrival of spring, so Baelon was immediately dubbed the Spring Prince. As the children grew, Grand Maester Bennifer watched them closely. The wounds by the enmity between the Conqueror's sons, Aenys and Maegor, were still fresh in the minds of many older lords, and Bennifer worried that these two boys likewise turn on one another to bathe the realm in blood. He need not have been concerned, save mayhaps for twins, nor brothers could have been closer than the sons of Jaehaerys Targaryen. As soon as he grew old enough to walk, Baelon followed his brother Aemon everywhere, and tried his best to imitate him in everything he did. When Aemon was given his first wooden sword to begin his training in arms, Baelon was judged too young to join him, but that did not stop him. He made his own sword from a stick and rushed into the yard anyway to begin whacking at his brother, reducing their master-at-arms to helpless laughter. Thereafter, Baelon went everywhere with his stick sword, even to bed, to the despair of his mother and her maids. Prince Aemon was shy around the dragons at first, Bennifer observed, but not so Baelon, who reportedly smote Balerion on the snout the first time he entered the dragon pit. He's either brave or mad, that one, old Sour Sam observed, and from that day forth, the Spring Prince was also known as Baelon the Brave. 3 years after Baelon the Brave was born, came little sister Alyssa. Alyssa proved to be a lively, healthy child. As a babe, she was so like her late sister Daenerys, that the queen oft wept to behold her, remembering the child that she had lost. The likeness faded as the princess grew older, long-faced and skinny. Alyssa had little of her sister's beauty. Her hair was a dirty blonde tangle with no hint of silver to evoke the dragon lords of old, and she had been born with mismatched eyes, one violet and the other starling green. Her ears were too big and her smile lopsided, and when she was 6 playing in the yard, a whack across the face from a wooden sword broke her nose. It healed crooked, but Alyssa did not seem to care. By that age, her mother had come to realize that it was not Daenerys she took after, but Baelon. So we have an Arya Stark type character. Just as Baelon had once followed Aemon everywhere, Alyssa trailed after Baelon. Like a puppy, the Spring Prince complained. Baelon was 2 years younger than Aemon, Alyssa nearly 4 years younger than him, and a girl, which made her far worse in his eyes. The princess did not act like a girl, however. She wore boys' clothes when she could, shunned the company of other girls, preferred riding and climbing and dueling with wooden swords to sewing and reading and singing, and refused to eat porridge. No idea what that's supposed to mean. Baelon and even their older brother don't follow a character archetype as closely as Alyssa. The boys are just your near-perfect princes. Following his big bro's footsteps, Baelon decided to pick out a dragon for himself in the dragon pit only after he earned his privilege. He entered attorneys' lists when he was only a squire as a mystery knight. He did this because he wouldn't be allowed to joust with full-fledged knights. Baelon was done competing with lowly squires. He performed better than any squire has a right doing, taking out multiple highborn knights before falling to Sir Rickard Redwyne. That name may not sound familiar, but Rickard is future Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Ryam Redwyne's brother. That doesn't necessarily mean Rickard was as good as Ryam, but King Jaehaerys was the one who personally knighted Rickard many years back after witnessing his skills, which does mean something. Like something straight out of a fairy tale, after Rickard unhorsed the Mystery Knight, who the crowd was calling the Silver Fool, he unmasked him by removing the full helm that Mystery Knights regularly wear in tourneys. Baelon was knighted on the spot by Sir Rickard Redwyne. Now that he was a knight, Baelon felt worthy enough to be a dragon rider. He immediately traveled back to King's Landing, walked into the dragon pit, and picked out Vhagar for his bonded partner, whose only previous rider had been Queen Visenya, one of the Targaryen siblings that conquered and united the Seven Kingdoms 70 years back. In 75 AC, the Red Keep was the site of another splendid wedding, as the Spring Prince took to bride the eldest of his sisters, Princess Alyssa. The bride was 15, the groom 18. Unlike their father and mother, Baelon and Alyssa did not wait to consummate their union. The bedding that followed their wedding feast was the source of much ribald humor in the days that followed. For the young bride's sounds of pleasure could be heard all the way to Duskendale, men said. A Shire maid might have been abashed by that, but Alyssa Targaryen was as bawdy a wench as any barmaid in King's Landing, as she herself was fond of boasting. I mounted him and took him for a ride, she declared the morning after the bedding, and I mean to do the same tonight. I love to ride. Yeah, that's Alyssa's character. Nor was her brave prince the only mount the princess was to claim that year. Like her brother before her, Alyssa Targaryen meant to be a dragon rider, and sooner rather than later. Aemon had flown at 17, Baelon at 16, Alyssa meant to do it at 15. According to the tales set down by the Dragon Keepers, it was all that they could do to persuade her not to claim Balerion. He is too old and slow, princess, they had to tell her. Surely you want a swifter mount. In the end, they prevailed, and Princess Alyssa ascended into the sky upon Meleys, a splendid scarlet she-dragon never ridden before. Red maidens, the two of us, the princess boasted, laughing. But now we've both been mounted. I can literally see Arya walking to a dragon pit, being first attracted by the biggest dragon Balerion, but then going for Meleys as well. In 77 AC, 2 years after the marriage, Alyssa gave birth to Viserys. Septon Barth described the boy as a plump and pleasant lad, who laughed more than any babe I've ever known, and nursed so lustily he drank his wet nurse dry. Against all advice, his mother clapped the boy in swaddling clothes, strapped him to her chest, and took him on a flight on Meleys when he was 9 days old. Afterward, she claimed Viserys giggled the whole time. This new mom was crazy as hell. But this bit of lore does show the kind of child Viserys was, all around pleasant and happy. What's crazy about Viserys is how little is actually written about him. His parents have so much of their upbringing in the Red Keep detailed, but nothing on Viserys. That's what made this character such a surprising hit on House of the Dragon. It's supposed to be his crazy family that hogged the spotlight, but somehow there was some added character by the writers and the actor's performance. Viserys is one of the most memorable. 4 years after Viserys came Daemon, the rogue prince. Their mother, being stubborn and maybe slightly insane, once again took this newborn flying on Meleys. This is where Daemon gets all his crazy from. Almost all of Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children had a serious case of rebellion in them. The realm was thriving under the old king, but life at home was tumultuous. With all the crazy kids, it was Aemon and Baelon making it seem like 13 pregnancies were a good idea. In 83 AC, both brothers deployed on Dragonback to participate in what might be the shortest war in the story, the Fourth Dornish War. Dorne had yet to be a part of the Seven Kingdoms, and for no real reason, the ruling Martell Prince decided to invade the Stormlands, where the Baratheons rule. The Martell Prince wanted it to be a surprise attack, so didn't want to march with a big army. The plan was to land on ships. King Jaehaerys had spies even in Dorne, and quickly flew over atop Vermithor with his elder sons on Caraxes and Vhagar. Baelon and company completely destroyed the Martell fleet before any ship touched the Stormlands, a massive success. But things were going too well for our brave prince. That never lasts too long with George Martin's writing. Alyssa was pregnant again by this point in the story. A few months after the Fourth Dornish War, in 84 BC, their third child, they would name Aegon, because that's what every Targaryen names their son would be born. It was a long and difficult labor. Do you see where this is going? Baelon comforted his sister by saying, "You are far braver than me. I would sooner fight a dozen battles than do what you've just done." Alyssa laughed at him. "You were made for battles, and I was made for this." Viserys and Daemon and Aegon, that's 3. As soon as I am well, let's make another. I want to give you 20 sons, an army of your own. It was not meant to be. Alyssa Targaryen had a warrior's heart in a woman's body, and her strength failed her. She never fully recovered from Aegon's birth, and died within the year, at only 24. Nor did Prince Aegon long survive her. He perished half a year later. Shattered by his loss, Baelon took solace in the 2 strong sons that she had left him, Viserys and Daemon, and never ceased to honor the memory of his late princess. Viserys and Daemon were close, but maybe not as close as Baelon and his brother Aemon. Viserys loved his adventurous little brother, but they were just so different. In 92 AC, another invasion threatened the Stormlands, this time by some pirates out of Essos. Prince Aemon was tasked with leading the fighting, now that the old king was extra old, so Aemon arrived there first on Caraxes. The enemy scouts, not meaning to assault the air, missed their shot and hit Aemon with a crossbow bolt in the throat. That killed him. Baelon and Vhagar would be the only dragon rider to take part in this war. Another short-lived invasion. Seeking revenge, he killed thousands of pirates, but the pain of his loss never went away. It wasn't only through Vhagar's dragonfire that Baelon quenched his bloodlust. He owned the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister, and he used it. The people back in King's Landing cheered for the new heir to the Iron Throne, calling him a hero, but behind closed doors, he wept to his mother. It was around this time that his son Viserys decided to bond with the oldest living dragon, Balerion. No dragon keeper stopped him from making this bond like he did his mother. He wasn't as crazy. Viserys would marry his cousin Aemma Arryn. She, for some unknown reason, did not become a dragon rider. Maybe it was her name not being Targaryen. Grandma Alyssa set up Daemon with Lady Rhea Royce, so he was stripped off to rule her castle one day. In 99 AC, the old king named his heir as his hand. Baelon proved to be a good judge of character and surrounded himself with loyal subordinates and counselors. Queen Alyssa believed he would be a great king, even better than her husband, but she would not live long enough to see that happen. Even Baelon didn't live long enough to see it happen, because in 101 AC, he complained of a stitch in his side while hunting in the King's Wood. The pain worsened when he arrived at the city. His belly swelled and hardened, and the pain grew so severe it left him bedridden. This is old-time talk or appendicitis, I believe. Less than a week later, Baelon died.
Baelon the Brave, rider of Vhagar, heir to the Iron Throne, dead of a burst belly. The gods have a dark wit.
It was a grim day.
The old king had never been so alone, and now he faced a dilemma. The succession was in question. With both of the heirs apparent dead, there was no longer a clear heir to the Iron Throne. With the last bit of life left in him, Jaehaerys gave the Valyrian steel sword that previously belonged to Baelon to Daemon, and a great council was called for a vote. The beginning of the House of the Dragon.